here in Congress. Congressman Rich Nugent, Florida's 5th District. Congressman, we're honored to have your testimony as one who's seen the challenge of tax fraud firsthand in your district, and I know you're going to share that story with all of our guests here today. Mr. Nugent was Sheriff of Hernando County, Florida, prior to joining Congress, so brings perspective not just as a member of the House, but also as a long-time dedicated law enforcement official. So, Rich, we're delighted to have you here with us, and you're recognized for a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to take this moment to thank the subcommittee and especially Chairman Platts and Ranking Member Towns for the opportunity to speak here today. Although tax fraud and identity theft is a nationwide problem, I wanted to make the subcommittee aware of what's happening in the Tampa Bay area and my district. Recently, Tampa Police Department started noticing that many of their most notorious drug dealers were no longer on the streets. Officers pulled one of their previous dealers over during a routine traffic stop and discovered massive amounts of prepaid debit cards, ledgers containing Social Security numbers, and laptop computers in the back of the car. Though this and similar routine traffic stops and drug busts, Tampa Police Department discovered a scheme known as TurboTax. One perpetrator had a ledger containing 100 names of deceased people, and after the investigation, it was discovered that this man had made well over 1,000 false returns and collected close to $2.4 million. Tampa Police Department worked well with the local IRS agents and U.S. attorneys in their investigations. However, once they went to the D.C. bureaucrats detailing exactly how criminals steal the Social Security numbers, file the fraudulent tax returns, and launder the resulting money, the Feds mostly turned a blind eye to that issue. Tampa PD have explained how the criminals got Social Security numbers. Initially, they targeted deceased people, filing returns, information they found on websites like Ancestry.com. Once they ran out of dead folks, they started stealing Social Security numbers from living victims. Tampa Police Department has had cases where information was stolen from nursing homes, schools, and hospitals. Additionally, James Haley VA Medical Center sent letters to about 200 veterans, warning them that their identity had been stolen to file false tax returns. The VA Inspector General is investigating this case currently. Tampa Police Department also knows how the criminals are filing their returns. The actual fraud is not committed by an organized group, but by individuals. Tampa Police Department has busted what the lawbreakers call make-it-rain parties, where criminals get together in a hotel room with Internet access and file fake return after fake return. Police know how the money is being laundered. The criminals have worked out deals with unscrupulous business owners who cash the checks or debit cards in exchange for a cut of the money. In Tampa, the most money seems to be laundered by a select group of high cash flow businesses, including used car dealers and clothing shops. One business alone received approximately $3.5 million in Treasury money, our money. How does Tampa Police Department know all this? The criminals are telling them. Even after they've been read their Miranda rights, the crooks are laying out their entire process to the cops. They're freely admitting their crimes because they don't think Federal officials would do anything about it. And unfortunately, it seems the criminals are right. As a representative from GIO told the subcommittee in your June hearing on this issue, IRS identified 248,357 incidents of tax-related identity theft in 2010. However, the IRS Criminal Investigative Division only had 4,706 active investigations into all types of fraud. The IRS and by the Justice Department say that these cases aren't of sufficient severity for them to look into. Experiences in Tampa show the lack of action is not reflective of the agents' desire on the ground to prosecute, but the bureaucracy within the IRS and their administrators. Even more infuriating is the Federal agencies are notifying the IRS of this fraud, but they continue to send checks. In Tampa alone, the U.S. Postal Service stopped delivery of an estimated $100 million in fraudulent refunds in a 6-month period. Media reports also say the company issuing the prepaid debit cards notified the IRS of concerns. However, the IRS ignored those warnings and just sent Treasury checks to those suspected fraudsters. I cannot understand how other government offices can be telling the IRS that their checks are going to fraudsters, and yet the IRS continues to pump them out. Given our current fiscal situation, it is unconscionable that the Federal Government can be aware of billions of dollars in tax dollars being stolen right out from under our noses and do very little about it. I'm here because I want to find a solution to the problem. First, the IRS needs better controls to keep the fraudulent returns from ever going out the door. Second, when identity-related fraud does occur, these criminals must be prosecuted and local law enforcement ought to be involved in the process. Maybe the IRS doesn't want to increase anti-fraud safeguards because it might slow down the return process. But I think honest taxpayers would rather get the returns a few days later and keep the money out of the hands of criminals and get their tax return. In closing, thank you again, Chairman Platts, for the opportunity to testify this morning. I look forward to working with both Federal and local officials, as well as my colleagues in Congress, including the subcommittee, to bring an end to this needless waste of taxpayer dollars.
Congressman Nugent, we certainly thank you for your testimony and especially your personal insights into this challenge that we're trying to deal with the IRS, both in your district as well as your background in law enforcement, bring a great level of expertise to assist this subcommittee in our efforts. We're not just glad to have your testimony, but ask unanimous consent that Mr. Nugent will join us on the dais and be part of the hearing for Q&A as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. We'll reset for our second panel, and certainly